Welcome to the Business Unscripted podcast. We're here to share real-life insights, practical strategies, and the honest lessons that we have learned from our own mistakes because, frankly, we have been in your shoes. So whether you need help with operations, accountability, financial knowledge, sales, or maybe just getting your mindset right, we are here, and this is the right spot for no-fluff conversations and tools that work. So grab your favorite cup of joe. Let's jump into the show. As I said myself, grab your favorite cup of joe. And let's jump into another episode of the Business Unscripted podcast, which means it's another Friday morning, and you're here with your favorite two business entrepreneurs and podcasters, voices, however you want to say it. But Duarne, welcome. And if you're here, welcome to you too. So, Duarne, how's your week going, man?
It went a lot quicker than I expected. So I kind of looked up yesterday and saw it was Thursday. And I was like, oh, wow, where did that go?
I'm kind of the same way now, you know, where it's like I look forward to the days of the week, and I really don't know which day of the week it is when I'm kind of working, except for like by looking at the calendar. But I'm like, it's like, man, there's just so much stuff I want to get done. There's just so much stuff I want to be working on. It's exciting. And, you know, that's how you, if you're listening to this, and Duarne and I, you know, it's how you know you're in the right spot, how you know you're doing something that you love. When you don't dread coming in to work, you don't dread staying longer hours. You know, I've been thinking it a while now. I would have never gotten up every day at 5:40 in the morning to leave the house by 6:30 to be at work at 7, and then be at work until like 6:37 every day. I would have hated it. You know what I mean? Even when I was doing what I thought I loved, being, you know, a CFO, director of finance in the corporate world, I would have never done that. You know, unless it was like needed because I had to get a financial report out, or it was year end, or we were doing a budget or something like that. But now,
morning meeting, that sort of thing.
like now it's just like, it's easy. It's like easy, and it doesn't feel like it's work, you know, which is why it's awesome.
It's a transition, right? And it's crazy, right? Like this week, I've been at my desk up until late almost every night,
right?
But I've been doing stuff that I actually enjoy. So for me, like last night, I was up until 10:40 p.m. or something like that at my desk. And I was doing a bit of vibe coding, got carried away with the project and got a little too excited. And the only reason I stopped was because I got a quota exceeded warning saying that I couldn't continue, and I couldn't figure out how to, you know, push past it. So I figured, well, the system guides are telling me to take a break. So I've gone inside, I've looked at the watch, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize it was that late.
Right.
And I got a very supportive wife. He's like, what were you doing? Oh, building something. Oh, cool. Okay. And we left it at that.
And it's, you know, a lot of people are like, what do you mean by vibe coding? You know what I mean? And it's something, and I said this too, because we share an office space here, and with like a little business initiative that is in our area. And a lot of the guys, I told them the other day, I said, you know, if you would have asked me 6 months ago, if I would have been sitting here at my computer with 2, you know, code IDEs up and running, you know, and going back and forth with another, you know, kind of code chatbot, building skills and doing all these things for clients, I would have told you were crazy. I'd have been like, what are you talking about? What's vibe coding? Like, I don't even know, you know, what computer code is. Like, no way I'm going to be doing that. And here I am, you know, because there's been such an advancement in the ability for the average person to do things and make things awesome, you know. And that's where it comes down to is you can see it, and all you got to do is just describe it. But there's still a world of so many people out there that just don't even want to get started. And that's great. Like, good for them, because that's where you and I, right? Or if you're listening to this and you're like, I love it just as much as you guys do, this is your opportunity, because you can help those people bring their ideas to life. And that's what this is all about. You know, you don't
Absolutely.
need
And like,
a $500 an hour coder or, engineer to make a basic landing page anymore.
no, and look, there's definitely, I mean, there's huge advantages of actually understanding how databases work, having some basic understanding of coding, having some understanding on how systems and functions and work and communicate together. But once you get that understanding and the basics together, you can really build out. And one of the things that, like, I was watching a lot of videos during the week on vibe coding and different techniques that people are doing. The one thing that I see is there's so many different platforms that can do it now. And there's so many different ways to do it. Everyone's got an opinion on what works best for them. And it doesn't really matter what you use. There's a lot of different simple ways to do it, whether it's Claude Code, whether it's AI Studio with Google Gemini, whether you're using Codex with OpenAI, and there's a whole bunch of others out there as well. But there's different techniques and ways to do it. And I was watching how actual long life app developers actually build versus how these new vibe coders who've never coded before do it. And the one thing that stood out was the person who can explain the best and communicate the best and the clearest what they want to achieve, how they want it to work, the guardrails, the limitations, they are going to get the best results most of the time. And making it look pretty and do things that,
Well, and that's if you so you mentioned, there's a lot of different programs out there, right? There's Codex, there's Claude, there's Gemini, Code, and there's more that we're not even talking about. But you also have to understand that they each have a power, right?
Yeah.
And what you also need to learn about is token usage and limits, which you mentioned. You hit a limit.
Yeah.
So what I actually use multiple, so I still use Codex with Claude in our work that we do here, because Claude is wonderful at the planning, the ideation, and the actual sort of design work. And then it's great at then creating you the steps that then you can use Codex, who's great at like the grunt work and uses less tokens to do the grunt work than Claude would do. And so getting out there and saying, okay, I'm going to plan with Claude, and then I'm going to say, okay, give me the steps and prompts that I need to create to give to Codex, because it's going to do the work. And then I'm going to send it back to Claude to review. Claude, your manager, Claude, your kind of oversight, and Codex is your, frontline staff, your interns, right, that are going to do a lot of the work for less cost. And so then what you can do in these is you go out, you have Codex, you get multiple terminals running at the same time in Codex with the different sort of prompts and have it working and being more efficient. And then you say, okay, go back to Claude and say, okay, steps 1 through 6 are done. Can you confirm them? And then if there's a deeper in-depth step that Claude should be doing, Claude will do it. And so you should be getting used to not picking just one and going with it, because they all have a benefit. I still use Gemini still with Claude, even though I do a lot of Claude now because of everything that you can do with Claude. But you still have Gemini's great for the image generation. So on some of our things, on some of our automation, we connect back to our Gemini to do the image generation. So because it's the best out there right now, so really understanding what are the power pieces for each, what's the strength of each of the platforms, and then harnessing how you can, use them. Codex, you can use at a $20 a month plan. And I've never hit a limit yet on Codex with ChatGPT. Now in Claude, I've hit the limit when I'm paying $200 a month for Claude, right? At the highest level, because there's still going to be limits on the model that you're using, no matter what. Because if it's tons of people out there, if there's hundreds, thousands, a million people trying to run that version, it's going to put limits on it, no matter what you're paying. So it really comes down to figuring out what works for you and your setup, and then just playing around and just going back and forth and getting used to it. You're going to get better. Again, 6 months ago, I didn't know code at all. I didn't know what a bash command was or what a terminal was. And now I'm using them every day, multiple times a day, and so it just is getting started.
It is, and it's interesting because, like, I'm being using AI Studio from Google to be building what I'm building at the moment, which is a payroll system. And one of the things that I'm doing with that is I'm using ChatGPT to help me create the instructions. And one of the things I noticed very early was if your instructions are too complex, it takes forever and then fails. So
in Google AI Studio.
Google AI Studio.
Yeah.
So to overcome that, I just went back to ChatGPT and said, hey, look, this is failing. Let's break this into bite-sized chunks that I can put in at smaller requests. And it doesn't time out. It doesn't fail. It gets the work done. It gets the work, goes through and does it. And that was really quite interesting. And then instead of going in and using, as tempting as it is, say, hey, I want to fix this. This isn't right. I go back over, I do a screenshot, and I go back over and I drop it in ChatGPT and I say, this isn't working the way I expected. I need to make this work like this. Can you give me the instructions to make this clear and make sure you include all the dependencies? Right. And it builds out an instruction set, and then it goes and I can copy, paste, and drop it in, and I'm getting really clean, consistent results all the way through.
And again, this is me, my 6-month expertise, right? But like that's the, like, you're at level 1 of like vibe coding, because the next step is actually then downloading to your device, right, the actual code editor, because then then you can have your Claude, your Codex all in one spot, and then it's automatically looking at the code, right? You're trying to piece and saying, oh, all your code's over here in Google AI. I want Codex to try to figure out what Google AI is doing without actually seeing it, and then trying to give it instructions. And this is where I started in coding. Was I was trying to use Codex in the web. It never really had access to the full, repository and seeing all of it. And so your next step would be, and if you're starting and you're trying to figure this out, you would design in Google AI Studio. Like, get the general basic. You can then export the code and then put it into a code editor. So don't try to make Google AI when you're looking at the Google AI Studio with an app. My suggestion, unless it's a really simple thing, you're building something that's more in depth, a lot of layers with a payroll kind of piece, right? An HRS system for your staff. Don't try to get it perfect, especially at your level where you have all these different sort of intricacies and different components to your app. Would be get the general initial flow right, then export it, and then you would go into a code software, and I would say definitely download Claude, have it analyze what you're trying to do. It will then put together a step-by-step plan of how to build everything out for you. And then it's reading everything, and then it can give those prompts directly to Codex to do a lot of the work. And then you can kind of come back and build it and finish it up that way. And then that's where you start to get to level like 2, 3, 4, 5 of really vibe coding and getting it going. And that's a lot of problems that I had early on. I'm sure you're feeling it, right? It's because you're telling Codex what you want it to do. It doesn't know what's actually coded and what's there. It's just assuming what's there based on what it's seeing in the screenshot. So when you go back to Google AI Studio, some of the instructions may be right, some of them may not, and then it may not fix it. And then you're trying to go back and forth, and now you're wasting all your time. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah,
but again, I'm a 6-month coder, that's got experience. But
well, and you're not wrong though. I mean, and when I was watching the videos, there's a lot of them out there using, whether it's Visual Studio, Cursor, any of these other visual aids to demonstrate and run your code and show what it actually looks like in real life, which is really cool. I mean, the fact you can build all this stuff and you can do all this stuff now is incredible. And the fact that we can build it, and you can do simple things. Like one of the ones I was watching, in 20, 30 minutes, they built a alternative version of granola, the meaning note taker with vibe coding. And they were using Claude, all right? So using Opus. And that was great. They were able to get it out. And they tried to, and there was this challenge they were doing it. An experienced developer and a experienced vibe coder was using their own tools to do it. And they had 5 prompts to make it work. And they made it a challenge. And I was quite surprised with what they were able to get working on an emulated iOS device
Yeah.
in that time frame.
I've
And
seen
you
a
had a
couple of
lot
those.
of
I think
functionality.
it's like it's a vibe coder versus an experience, and they kind of go head
That's
to head
it.
on different apps, right? And they try to develop the different
Yeah.
apps, right?
And they
I've
try,
seen a
and,
couple of
and,
those
and
too.
hearing them talk about it is kind of cool, because you start to see how a developer who's been doing this for a long time and developing from scratch works with these tools. And you get to see how a vibe coder who doesn't really understand the fundamentals of, coding necessarily, and goes, well, I wanted to do this and this is how it's going to work. And they explain it, and you'll see that a lot more detail goes into the instructions from a vibe coder
Right.
rather than of an actual developer.
And here's where we say that we've said this on this. This is like you surrounding somebody. You're surrounding yourself with somebody that has a lot more experience than you. Think about it. We've talked about it with Henry Ford. Henry Ford didn't know much about cars, but yet his name's on millions of cars every year because he surrounded himself with people. This is you now in your business, in your life, surrounding yourself with the brain power of 100,000 coders to help you do what you need to do and bring it to life. So as a CEO of a company, you have to be able to be that visionary. You have to explain what is in your head to your team of coders, which is your AI, your vibe coding, etc., to be able to then get out what you want it as an output. And so this is the truly, now you don't have to pay salaries, taxes for all these 100,000 people or however many vibe coders you want to have on your team. You have it at your fingertips. It's basically, what do you want to invest in a monthly, kind of use of the software and your limits. And that's where you're going to be limited by, is what time do you have to actually give it. And this is where I also, and again, if you have it on your computer, you can actually like do local dev environments where you don't have to post it up to the web yet. You can actually see what it's going to look like on your local computer before you have to go into like a Go High Level or your website platform and upload the different code and then test it. And then it's right there. And all you do is like click a button. It's Claude's so smart. It literally gives it to you and says, here, just click here. And it's going to pop up. It also, if there's visual components that it wants to code, it'll say, do you want me to show you this before we move forward, instead of it just being text? And you can say yes, and then it'll show you the visual components. Okay, which one do you like, A, B, or C? So it's like literally having a teammate right next to you, and then you can give it feedback. I don't like any of those. I want you to change A, B, and C. Then here's why, right? And then it'll go through, it'll change it, it'll give you the next steps. And so you really have no reason to not want to do this other than you're just not interested in it. And I get it. You have your strengths. Some people are like you and I, Duarne, right? We love this. We love how we can design things for people and make their life easier. People have their strengths, and this is where you're using your experience in marketing, design, and development that you've already had prior to this, and now you're bringing it in to your design work. I have the financial, the operation side, that now I'm now able to develop something for people that is going to impact their life because they want to make their life easier by just doing what they love. And so a lot of people don't love it like we do. And that's cool. Like, I get it. That's why we're here, because we can help do things for them that they don't want to do, but it still makes their life easier. And that's ultimately what this whole rotation of support kind of gets down to.
Absolutely. And like, I had one of my staff sitting next to me today whilst we were going through what we'd already built, saying, oh, it'd be great if we could do this. It's like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's flesh out the concept, flesh out a concept, load it in the instructions, and built out the functionality right there.
Right.
And I was like, okay, what about, what else are you thinking? Oh, this would be good. Yeah, that is a good idea. Let's implement that. So you can take feedback from teams and put it into this. This is not something you have to do solo necessarily. And the one thing I found really interesting is a lot of the stuff when I started out with this particular project, I normally scope projects out pretty thoroughly. I realized that there was a lot of stuff in here as I was going, like, oh yeah, this would actually be really good to add in as a dependent, because we couldn't do that in the last system. And I used to hear lots of complaints coming through from the team. Let's build that so I could fully customize it. And then at some point along the lines, I'm like, well, this is not going to be just an internal tool anymore. This is becoming an actual proper HR tool that I can put out to anybody. This is something I can put out and provide it to other people. So now I've got a product design in my head where I'm building out a product to go out. Now, is it
Correct.
going to be the final product once I finish the vibe coding? No. I'm going to have my development team go through and actually clean it all up and finalize it and fix any issues that they see and version history the lot and create all the how-to guides. Then I'll beta test it and then I'll get it out there. But I mean, like some of the stuff you're doing with this,
that's the piece that's important, is you can't just vibe code it and then put it out, because there are a lot of things that you want to make sure are correct. And then that's where you then begin to invest into an experienced person to be able to kind of wrap it up, right? And then have that sort of maintenance with you ongoing. But you can get through ideation, you can get through the basic V1 beta testing almost on yourself. And as long as, like in your scenario, you're going to have sensitive information from people. If you're not carrying sensitive information, and as long as you make sure that you're connected to the right database, Google's, things like that, and you're not using some, and you have the security in place, and you can ask the code, hey, how secure is this? You can even go and say, all right, now that we're kind of ready to go for beta testing, I want you to do a security analysis on everything that we have going on the site, and where are our areas that we need to improve. And then it's going to give you the step-by-step plan of, okay, well, we need to improve A, B, and C because these are the issues. And then it's going to analyze it. Okay, this is fatal, right? This is high, this is low risk, and then you can decide what you want to actually pay attention to. And this is the beauty of that. And then you can go, once you're ready to go live, and if you're going to have sensitive information in there, you can grab it, have somebody review it, save yourself all that time, and you've already vetted the idea. You don't want to pay somebody to develop something that you haven't even vetted the idea if there's going to be interest or need. The idea would be
concept. I mean, it's proof of concept, right? It's prototyping. And this is one of the things which I think is really interesting. And we talked about this previously. I mean, if you're a songwriter and you're using an AI song generator, you can put your song in a song generator with the style of singer that you and music you were thinking would work with it, and then hear it played back and see if it sounds the way you thought it did. It's a prototyping your lyrics in use, rather than you have to sit there and try and sing. And if you're a terrible singer, you might not be able to. Development is the same way. You can build proof of concept. Once it's built as a proof of concept, you can then go out and test it, show it, demonstrate it, get investment to go out and hire a team and build it out properly, into a commercial use case. Or you could build out a proof of concept, present it to a client and say, hey, look, this is going to solve that problem you were telling me about. If you'd like, I can get this fully built out for you. It's going to cost X, Y, Z. This is a demo to show you what it could look like and how it's going to function.
Right.
What do you think? Is this something that you're interested in?
I just did that exact same scenario. It's a client of mine or soon to be, where they have a manual process right now that's causing a lot of delays. And so I developed a proof of concept on Google AI Studio of here's how it would look. And Google AI Studio is able to give you kind of here's view A, view B, view C. And we were able to then ship it right to them from Google AI Studio and say, here's the demo. If this works, we'll build the entire back end. We'll do all of that for you. And then it's going to help you with your process. And we're going to take all that off your plate. And that's ultimately the goal too, is how, internally, do we build it to be able to take that manual work off their plate, but then make it easier on our end as well for our team to then go out and do the work that they need to provide the outcome. And so this is also that challenge that you're going to have probably with people as well, where they're going to be like, oh, so you made your job easier. Why are you charging me so much? Right. And this is where you have to believe in outcome value versus price per hour of the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff that we and Duarne were talking about this pre-show, when you develop something like this, you don't necessarily know what the back-end costs are going to be, because you're going to have API costs, you're going to have storage costs as your use of that platform. Right. And so the database, all of that. And so you have to believe still, you don't want to drop down to a price where eventually you're going to be losing money. It's an outcome. How much time are you giving back to them in terms of the person that you're working with? That's how you're pricing it. You're not pricing it about how easy it is on the back end for you. You're pricing it because you're giving them back 10 hours a week. And what's that 10 hours a week worth for them? And as long as that value is 3, 4, 5x what you're charging them, that's all that matters. And you have to believe in your price. And I've said this to people so many times.
It's a value proposition. I mean, like for us, I started out building a payroll system because I thought, you know what? My team's been complaining about who do the payroll. It takes too long. We had a payroll system previously. It was reasonable. It wasn't great. And they did a midnight disappearing act. And that was it. And we've been looking for a replacement, and we haven't found one that fit the suitability and the price point we wanted.
Right.
So I thought, you know what, let's just build a spreadsheet. So as I started to build out a spreadsheet, I realized, and of course I was getting some help with AI with that, I'm like, this is going to be too complex to explain to my team how to use a spreadsheet. There's too many moving parts here. And when this is done, I'd have to build an automation as a gem in Google to grab this and convert it to this and then do this, or have these agents in place to go in and grab this information and convert it to this. I'm like, what if I just turn it into an app? And then as I started to work on the concept, it made a lot more sense to be an app. And then when I started working on it, I realized, well, it can be a payroll system, but I should have shifts, leave requests, attendance records. I need to have disbursement information. I need to make sure that I've factored in all these different categories, all these different reports. So suddenly this thing, it was meant to be a simple spreadsheet, or a not so simple spreadsheet, has become a fairly complex application. And as I go through and I bring more of the team into it who are using this system or will be using this system, they've got feedback on the functions they would like. And this is something you can't do really very well with a developer, because a developer will typically scope something. They'll create the milestones, they'll scope it, and then they'll follow the milestones. And if you do something out of scope, there's an additional cost for that. Or it has to be rescoped, and then additional cost for that. And then a longer time frame. So just the ability to be able to prototype this is absolutely incredible. It's one of those scenarios where if we were able to do this 10 years ago, I'm sure people, a lot of developers would have been so much happier. Now we can do it, and it's so much easier for anyone to do it. A lot of developers are concerned what this means for their jobs. We've seen this in Australia where large companies, which were hiring very large amounts of developers and engineers, are now reducing down to a third of those developers and engineers. And using AI to help them.
Here's the deal. This happens all the time in business. And it's just like Blockbuster, in the US. You see a shift changing, how are you going to approach it? If you're stuck in your ways and you're like, I'm not changing, we're just going to keep coding, we're going to keep trying to manage, big code systems and develop from the beginning, you're going to fail. You're going to be just like Blockbuster. You're going to literally end up going out of business. Now, if you can see the future and you can begin to shift yourself into, hey, we understand you guys are all vibe coding. Our expertise is going to be, when you get done and you're ready to go live, we're going to develop a practice to actually analyze your code and your database and then make it more secure for you. If you can shift the way that you're looking at your packaging instead of trying to go from the full development and realize, wait, I don't have to do full code anymore. These guys are going to come with code. It's going to give me a base. I'm going to start here. Right. It just makes sense, and so it's any time. It's a rotation. Everything's going to keep going.
Absolutely.
So this is just another reiteration of that,
It's the Industrial Revolution again.
Yeah.
We go through these every now and again. You put machines in to solve problems, and then suddenly people don't have a job. Well, you still need people to run the machines. And one thing that we've demonstrated, I hope, during this call or this episode, is that not everyone's going to be capable of doing vibe coding. It really takes you to understand what you're trying to put out. Now, as somebody who builds a lot of custom GPTs for a lot of different people, one of the things that I find very stressful is that you're very much stuck in that particular mode. And this is where taking that to the next level and adding AI agents to that, or building it into an application so it's got a user-friendly interface that anyone can use. There's a lot of value in that. So you might have an idea or a business concept or even just a product idea. And for you to be able to spend a weekend putting something together that looks half decent with some of the functionality that you can then go and pitch the idea to somebody and sign them up and say, look, I'll have a deliverable to you in 3 months. And then spend that 3 months building out the deliverable and maybe get a deposit for it. I mean, that's huge. That means you can go out and find yourself a developer to help you finish the project. That means that you can take the time to mess it up and fix it a couple of times. Because I guarantee that's one thing you'll learn with vibe coding. It is not going to always be perfect every single time you start working on it. There is going to be times where you hit a glitch and you go, oh, that's not what I wanted. Reverse, go back. Because there's things you don't realize. Like one thing that we realized very quickly, or I realized really quickly with my project, is I needed to add additional sections to existing parts of my app. I had to add additional logic. I had to add in different permission structures. And then I had to add in masquerade features. So I could go in as a super admin, masquerade, and look at other account holders and see what they're viewing and looking at. Because if I don't have that, I can't help them when they have a technical problem because I don't see what they've got.
Right.
So there's all these little things you don't realize.
Here's the other thing with that is, as you're developing it, you're V1, right? You're like in it, you see it. However, the thing you have to pay attention to when you're trying to do something like this is you're always going to feel like I can just do one more thing. I can do one more thing. I can do one more thing. You have to pull yourself away from that. You have to say, where's my V1, right? Where am I going to go to beta with? And understand that all these other things can happen. So what is absolutely 100% needed versus what is a nice to have? And then that's what you go with beta with. You decide, this is my beta list and this is what I'm going to do. Because you can always keep building it out. You can always keep adding another feature. And if you'd never go live with it, you spent all this extra time developing when the basic concept wasn't even something that people were going to invest in or want to add into their business. And so I learned this where you have to set a date. Like once you're in a good place, go beta. Like set a date for beta. Yep. You can work on things on the back end, on branches, so that you don't have to put it to live yet. That's fine. Make a list of all those things you want to add in later. But you have to start somewhere with a good initial service, because otherwise you're just going to keep coding. You're going to keep trying to get it perfect. Nobody goes perfect the first time, right?
No,
Uber never went perfect. DoorDash is not perfect. Like Amazon didn't go perfect when they first went. Like they're always evolving, but they're still out there. And that's the piece that you have to get as a business owner, is you have to get out there. You have to stop being perfect and just get something out there that's got the basic concept that works, right? And from there you can make edits.
2 points on that too, Dave. Don't stress about the visuals. You want to focus on the function and the features first.
Yes.
You can always fix visuals later.
Yep.
So one of the things I've noted is I start going through is I'm like, oh, I'd like to change this to this, or I'd like to change the way this is looking. I'll come back to that. I make a note. I come back to it. Mm-hmm. That's very, very low on the priority list.
And here's the thing you could do if you are using like a Claude in an IDE on your computer. You can say, I want to change this, but it's not vital to me going live to beta. Add it to the note file for us to change later. And it will literally keep all of this in a checklist for you to come back to later. You know what I mean? And so This is the beauty of this. You don't have to think about it. You could say, I like that. I don't want to change it yet. Like we'll leave it for now for beta testing, but make a note of it to test before we go live, to make changes before we go live.
And the other thing you can do is you can question it and say, look, what do you recommend we work on next to make this more robust or more secure or more user-friendly or a better customer experience? And it's actually pretty clever with some of the suggestions they can make to you for that. But to the point you made before about just getting something to market and then move and improve, the guys who put together Basecamp many years ago actually came up with a book called Getting Started. Now, I might have mentioned this on this podcast before. You can get a copy of that ebook for free if you go looking free copy Getting Started. And what you'll find is that ebook talks about getting a product to market. In that instance is talking about getting a web app to market and the things to take care of. Because everything you thought mattered generally doesn't matter to your customer. Your customers will tell you exactly what matters to them. They'll tell you what the problems are once you start the beta testing or the alpha testing with them. So take the time and get it out there and start a read. I mean, it's not a long read, but it's certainly something you should have a read of if you're looking at doing some vibe coding, because it's just going to set you up to really think about how you're going to take that product and go to launch with it. And in some cases, we're not even, like in my case, I started out just building an internal tool. So you're probably not thinking about how to take this to market and sell it.
Right.
But you can still get a lot of value out of, that book Getting Started by the guys at Basecamp. Very clever guys, and it's a really good read to help put you on the right track. And if you're not sure, you can always grab a copy of that book, drop it into your ChatGPT and say, I want to use this process. Help me build out a plan to build my app.
No, you don't even do it that way now. That's old school. Now it's use Claude, build a skill around the book, and now it's repeatable. You don't even have to worry about it anymore, and it's always going to be in the background no matter what you're doing. So, and I go that like skills are another.
Skill is for everyone who's not sure, Dave.
So, skills are in Claude specifically, and 2.0 I think came out like just a month or a week and a half ago or something like that. But the idea with a skill is that you train Claude how to do something in a way, and it always is going to be repeatable, because then it saves it in its files. And every time you say, let's say for an example, I have skills for everything, but I have a social media content optimizer. So it is to understand for LinkedIn what's the best way to write copy for LinkedIn. So then it's going to analyze the algorithm of everything that's going on. It'll teach itself, it'll learn. And every time then I get asked, I want to write a post for LinkedIn, it's going to know, and it's going to go to that skill for LinkedIn writing and then give me the post based on how it should write for LinkedIn. Do the same thing for Facebook, for Alignable. And the beauty of skills as well is that you can test them against itself. You can say, okay, I want you now retest it. Make sure you're still optimized. And then it's going to continue to update itself. It's not automatic, right? You have to test it, but then you say, okay, give me an output, and then analyze it based on your skill, and then make changes based to yourself to get a better output. And so that's the beauty of skills 2.0. And it's only going to continue to get better. And you don't have to be experienced on it, because Claude itself has a skill generator in it. So it already knows if you say, I want to create a skill around this, you just tell it the steps of everything you want it to do, and it's going to create a skill on it. That's the beauty of it. And so it's better than a customized GPT. Why does my camera keep going off? I'm sorry, guys.
No.
It's better than
some of the Elgato cameras actually have overheating problems. I've had that.
I think that's what this is, which is crazy. But I'll be right back. I'm gonna fix this and get another camera. But you talk on that for a minute. I'll be right back for a second.
Dave, I love that. I think that's what you just suggested is great. Another way you can do it is you can actually set up AI agents and train them specifically in the skill set that you want, and really niche it down so that when you're doing a task, just call up that agent to do that work for you. And that's effectively an AI employee that you can bring in to do the work to solve that problem that you want to do. So there's lots of different techniques and ways to do it. And look, if you're sitting there going, this just sounds all too complex and complicated, you don't have to go straight to the top. You can just start right nice and simple at the bottom and just work your way up. Like Dave was saying, I'm a tier 1 in his opinion with some of the stuff that I've been playing with over the last few days. And it's just about getting started. Once you get started, you're going to find it gets better and better. And for me, I've got a development team. I could just hand this off to my development team, but I want to get it to the point where it's in alpha beta mode, where I can hand it to them and say, hey, go and improve this, make it better, and let them finish it and let them run with it. I want to build the proof of concept. And then I want to go in and tell them what I want fixed on that and let them go and fix it. So you could build up these great little tools, products, skills, AI agents, all of these different functionalities to do what you need to do. And we've said, stick with one if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, one platform, and just start there. Once you feel like you've mastered that, then try another one. And just be careful going down the path of lots of YouTube watching video tutorials. I found myself looking at a few people, and then I just found the ones I liked and how they worked and how they presented the information, and I just stuck with their content and just watched theirs. I didn't go down the path of watching 20 different creators on how they all did it and then compare how they did it. I just picked two,
Right.
and then just stuck with that, and then really narrowed in on how I wanted to do it based on what they were teaching. And that was really useful for me. But find what works for you.
At one, I think too, you literally have to, like you said, find what works for you. Pick a piece here and a piece there. You're never going to follow somebody exactly, because if they're doing content, their whole focus is content, unless they're running some other business. But most of the people that are putting a lot of these videos right now, they aren't focused on actual business applications. And you'll notice they don't go in depth into what they're doing. They give you a high level, very like, okay, here's a couple things in this folder. Here's what you can do with it. They're not going in depth in your specific examples, etc. If you're watching their videos. So what you have to do is just learn the concept and then think of how can I imply this? Or the other way, best way, grab the transcript and then go talk to your AI and say, here's a concept I like. How and could I apply this to what we're doing? And again, if you're using Claude, it learns everything that you're doing. It knows what you're doing, especially if you're doing code. It knows it even in the chats. How, with what we're doing, trying to build X, Y, and Z, how does this apply to me? And what's way that I can adapt this to work for me? And that's the beauty of it. Now you have a brainstorming session, a brainstorming partner that can help you kind of bring up what that plan looks like. And so that you don't always have to think about it on your own. And so many people, man, I hear this all the time. It's like, nobody's thinking anymore. Really? I'm thinking at a more higher level now than I was before. I think the clip just came out because when we had Mark on, he said it great. He's like, if you have an associate's degree, it's giving you a bachelor's. If you have a bachelor's, it's giving you a master's. If you have a master's, it's giving you a PhD. Because when you can think at that level, and then you have all this team around you to then help you think at a higher level, it's just going to help expand your growth. And so the ones that are saying that are, to me, are the ones that are literally like, they're the ones that probably haven't even started with AI. They don't even get it. They just think that it's a cheat code or something like that.
We're talking, and you're also talking, there's a lot of confusion, I think, out there at the moment, is reliance on technology, doom scrolling, all of these sort of crazy things, and also relying on these technologies too young. So if you're talking about adolescence, sure, maybe it shouldn't be something that should be introduced to adolescents too early. But if you're talking about people who are already established in their career, have already established a basic skill set in something, it's giving them the capability to take that to the next level. It's giving them the ability to think and partner and brainstorm. If you imagine how many times you've gotten into a conversation with somebody, thought, that was incredible. I feel so energized after that conversation. I'm so motivated. I want to go and build something. I want to go and do something. That's how you can feel when you start working with the right AI partner and you start building it out and start creating tools and prompts and even just custom GPTs.
Well, here I'm on a completely opposite end of the adolescent piece. And here's why, right? This is their future. Okay. They are going to know AI one way or another and how they need to use it. So many people are like, I don't want AI in school. I don't want them to like help research. Why? Let them learn and research more about the national forests in the United States, because AI is going to give them everything they need to know, than them going out and finding the top 3 websites and writing a report on it. AI is their future. This is the same way that when computers first came out, people were probably fighting when we were in school to not have computers in. And now they're there every day. They have individual computers that they walk to class through. This is their future. Stop fighting it. So just let them be able to use it, teach them how to use it right, and how to actually think through the way to partner with AI, instead of making it this forbidden thing and turning it down. Because I guarantee you, come back, clip this, whatever you want to do. Okay. In minimum of 3 years, okay, maybe 5, AI is going to be in schools. you are going to see AI in schools. It's going to be helping to teach. It's going to be helping them to get a more in-depth understanding of what they're teaching and what they should be teaching. As well as, I'm also a proponent for homeschooling because you can do so much more. Okay. Like,
Yeah.
it,
Imagine
especially
having
if you're
AI
local.
agents with skill sets who are perfect English teachers who
Yeah,
also, if you've got a child with learning difficulties, for example, is also skilled in how to teach that child in a way that works for them. So a
exactly.
customized teaching technique. I totally agree. A long time ago, about 2 years ago when AI first came out, I made a statement that people who have ADHD, massive, incredible tool for them to use is AI, because it gets that messy, unfocused thoughts into clear, actionable thoughts. And it helps them
Right.
take messy details and get some clarity into what they're going on. One thing I love about AI is you can give it a little bit of chaos, not a lot of chaos, because it will struggle a little bit more with that, but a little bit of chaos, and it can help you get some clarity. And you can have a communication dialogue with it where you'll actually get clearer and clearer and clearer and closer to where you want. And you're right. When I was in school, we'd go to the bloody library. We'd have to go and get books out. Some of these books were 10 years old, 20 years old. We were
Yeah,
using Cyclopedia and Carter on a CD back in 95, 96, 97, 98. Every year you'd have to get a new one.
I knew it.
We were using World Books. We're using Britannica, which were 10 years old. Picked them up from the op shop, 10 years old for $50 for a full set.
It's just so backwards. And I am the biggest component of people should be using AI. And the people that fight it are the ones that have no idea. They've never touched it. Right. It's funny because I try to
Well,
talk
they've
to
gleaned
my
it.
kids all the time
They've
about it. I'm
gleaned
like, hey, have you learned about like Notebook LM for teaching? Have you guys, have they taught you like how to do this to improve your learning? And it's like, no, we're not allowed to use AI. And then even my, their mom, right? I try to, hey, like, you should help them. Like, this is going to be great for them. They should be using AI. They shouldn't. I'm like, you guys have no idea what it is because you've never touched it. And
You know what this
it
is? This
can
is when the first
drastically.
time that calculators were introduced into a classroom.
Exactly.
You can't do math
We hit it
without
earlier,
a
right? The
calculator.
evolution, right? The evolution of everything happening. This is the evolution again of the classroom in
Yeah.
school. If your school is highly against it, they're guarantee in 3 years it'll be in their classroom. But you then have, as a leader, if you're into AI, you have to then be the one to be teaching your kids how to use it effectively. Not, I want you to go out here and I want you to just write my book report. That's not how you use it, right? Use it in learning mode, have it teach you, have it understand, have it walk you through, right? A, B, and C, and it's going to quiz you. I taught my son
Yep.
that. I said, here, you have math questions, ask it the math question, but go in learning mode, right? Don't just say,
Yep.
what's the answer? Go in learning mode. It's going to walk you through step by step what the actual reasoning is. And it's going to then quiz you. Do you understand it? Here's a test, and then it's going to give you a quiz. Do you understand the concept? And then it's okay, let's move on. And so I wholeheartedly believe in you. What you mentioned
Mm.
just a couple minutes ago. You are going to be able, I'm sure this is already in development somewhere around the world, right? By somebody. If not, somebody's may listen to this and do it. But they're going to create a service that learns about your kid, okay? Understands their learning, their style, okay? Continues to learn and improve as it engages with your child to teach them everything that they need to know in school. And I guarantee it's going to be better than okay, maybe not guarantee any teacher, but it's going to be better than about 90% of teachers on planet right now. Just because it has all those capabilities and it's going to be specific to each client. It's not one teacher for 20 kids. It's going to be one teacher for one kid
Yeah.
and specific for that kid. Think of that learning experience. Why are we
Well,
turning that away from our children?
yeah. Oh, I totally get it. I think it's like anything. Introduce it in the correct format. It's a knife can be a weapon or it can be a tool. A hammer can be a weapon or a tool. It's how we teach people how to use it. And we are talking about an extremely powerful tool that can do wonderful things if you teach your children correctly how to use it. You know, it's like when you've got stairs in your home and you've got young children, you teach them how to safely navigate the stairs so they don't fall down the stairs. They don't get hurt. We can do the same thing with this technology. The internet, TikTok, they shouldn't be on TikTok, but YouTube, all these different platforms. I mean, YouTube is on my television, every television in my house now. I can't get around it.
Well, YouTube is now the number one. It's the number one TV source for live TV and anything. It's the number one media is YouTube right now.
Yeah, and it's crazy, and it's a free to air service that for the entire population to use. They're doing wonder, and it's fantastic in what it can do. But in the same regard, I mean, I've got my 19-month-old walking around copying my 8-year-old son, picking up the phone with YouTube on it, or picking, when she sees one laying around and starts yelling, what is it? Doogles, which is her version of Wiggles. So Doogles, trying to do a voice prompt to get it to find what she wants to watch because she's seen her big brother do it. So, I mean, they're learning already to interact with these technologies. So, yes, you can limit screen time and everything, but if you're using it from a point of view of a training tool, then why not? You know how many times I've wanted to learn something and ask for a give me a technique on how I could learn this. And it would give me techniques on how I could learn a new skill. Right. I even saw, it was crazy. I saw like an ad the other day where preppers have started creating mini computers with basic LLMs on it with huge databases of information. So they doesn't require an internet connection. They can just fire up these little computers that use almost no power and start asking questions and leave them in their bunkers. So like, how do I make this food? How do I, find water? How do I, distinguish what is a poisonous mushroom, whatever that might be? I don't know. I'm just making stuff up here. But the idea is like a huge database that they've got on the storage of the devices with a little AI that runs and searches all of that information and brings back the responses based on what it finds and cross-references to other information within that database. So if one article mentions something, but there's another article that's actually got better information or notes that it feels it should, advise you of, it can do so. I mean, there's so many different use cases for this, which is absolutely incredible, and not all of them are doom and gloom. Yes, exactly. I feel if you're talking about AI-controlled missile systems and stuff like that, big problem. But I was showing my wife this morning a video that I was watching from a vlogger out of China. And he was in a Mongolian open coal mine and was showing 90 metric ton capable or capacity full electric dump trucks with complete AI autonomy. 140 of these dump trucks travel a 60-kilometer round trip to pick up and drop off all the coal in minus 30 degrees Celsius temperatures. Conditions that are not safe for most people to be out in for long periods of time.
Right.
So AI is doing great things in parts of the world that we're not even aware of and being used in really positive ways as well. So using it with your children in the correct way could be a positive experience.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's their future. This is not going away, so that's why when I hear people, you have to have the conversation. You have to open it up, and ultimately, it's going to be 3 years. Or it could even be less, but at least 3 to 5 years. It's going to be in every classroom, just like computers are in every classroom now. They wanted to solve. I remember being on like typing classes. You know what I mean? They don't have those anymore. They just give them a computer. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So stop fighting. You have to embrace. Right. You have to embrace these things. But as for the episode, it's really about understanding what's your passion. And again, this doesn't even have to be vibe coding, but it's like what is your passion? And then how can you use that to support people? Is there a need? You know, because there is a big difference. Like a lot of people are going to be passionate about something, but maybe can't potentially turn it into a business because there's not a need for it. But then again, how do you know unless you actually start? And how do you, so, I'm a big Gary V component. I love, or a proponent, sorry, not component. I don't do anything for him.
Which
But
component
I'm a
are you?
proponent. Yeah, I'm a proponent for Gary V because I love watching this stuff. It's motivational. He's always positive. But his biggest thing is, you just got to there may be people out there that love cooking Italian food, and want to watch those types of things. And if that's your passion, start doing it. Start making something around it. It's not going to replace your full-time income right away. That's not that's not the focus. Like the focus shouldn't be, I want to replace my income right away. The focus is, I'm going to do something that I'm passionate about to make my life enjoyable. That's how you should start anything. Follow you. Duarne and I can't tell you. Your spouse can't tell you. Your family can't tell you. You are the only one who can actually tell you what you want to do, what makes you happy. And if you're trying to listen to everybody else first, you're never going to be happy. You're always going to feel like you're missing something because you're not following yourself. And that's the biggest lesson that I think I have learned, in my life, was I always was listening to other people because I didn't want to, for whatever reason, let them down. Um, it's probably one of the reasons I'm still living in Ohio. Yeah, and in Cleveland. I hate the cold, but yet I'm still here because early on in my life, I always wanted to move away because I didn't want to let people down. I didn't want to, move away and let the family down because they always made me feel bad for wanting to move. I'm still here. And it's just a lesson learned. And so, it's one of those things I tell my kids all the time. I said, guys, don't stick around for me. Don't stick around for your mom, right? If you want to stick around for you. That's the focus. And I think it's really hard as parents too. Like, I get it. You want your kids to stay around. I get it. I'm a parent. I have 4 kids, gonna have 2 step kids that are grown as well. But, you literally have to let them have their freedom. That's the point. You have kids. It's not to keep them around you for the rest of your life. You have children to grow and then they flourish. Let them leave. If you're making them feel bad because they want to move away or they want to go to another state or they want to do any of that, like, poo on you. Because you're only holding them back. Like, why are you I don't understand that. Like, I see my kids and I'm like, guys, I want you to achieve way more than me. I want you to go do things that I didn't get to do. Go do it. I am never going to tell any of my kids, hey, I want you can't do that. I don't like that. I may give them advice, but ultimately the decision's there, and I'm never going to make them feel bad for making a decision that wasn't the same as what I felt for them. That's biggest thing.
Where there is an advice, like for me, I feel parenting is you're a coach in an advisory role. You're trying to help them make as little bad choices as possible, but it's got to be their choice. You've got to, and you can guide them, you can help them, but our job is to give them as many skills as possible so that they are successful in life, that they are able to achieve, that they are a contributing member to society. I mean, that's the key here, right? And like with everything, if you're not feeling a little uncomfortable with what you're doing, you're probably not growing. You're probably not, you're stuck in a comfort zone. And some people are happy with that, which is fine. But if you're one of those people that feels like you're a little uncomfortable in where you're at the moment, that's probably a good thing. Probably means you're growing to that next stage. You're starting to develop and, become the next part of your evolution.
Yeah. And I agree with that too. There's things right now that I'm doing that I'm uncomfortable with, right? The coding, the growth, that's when you learn, when you put yourself in those uncomfortable situations, is you stretch yourself, you stretch your limits, and then those become your new limits, and then you grow again and you grow again. You ultimately, you think of your knowledge, your experience as like an exoskeleton, you know, and you should be growing through it. Just like, you know, you think of a lot of the animals in this world that shed their skin or their shells or any, you know, or their exoskeleton, you know, if they couldn't do that and yet their bodies kept growing, they would die. They would literally squish themselves. That's kind of what you're doing by trying to stay in your comfort zone. You know, you're trying to get better, you're trying to grow, but yet you're trying to keep your outside this small, right? This tight, and you're just going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And you're just going to feel like you're not accomplishing anything because you're not growing. You're keeping yourself in that realm. And so, yeah, the biggest thing you can do is work at it. You're going to suck at it first. Trust me, you're going to suck.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'm looking at
Don't do anything
the
important on your first app.
right.
Don't get promised
Yeah,
too much.
start small. Just start something, you know, like a little dashboard or something, and just get used to it. But like, I'm thinking of like I tried to when I first went, it was like a forecasting tool, you know, because we do finance and stuff. So it was going to be a forecasting tool for profit first clients for our, but it sucked. Like because I was trying to do it the old way, you know, I didn't know the coding, I didn't know any of that, so I was trying to do it like what I thought was the easy way, and the math never worked. There was a lot of bugs, and you know, I probably spent a good 3 weeks doing a lot of vibe coding, getting good sort of insight, and then it didn't work. And so I tried version 2 and then got busy with other things, so I scrapped that. But then now the one that we're about to launch is V3 essentially, and it's perfect. I wouldn't say it's perfect. But it's what I wanted.
Significantly better. It's a
Yes.
production ready almost.
Yes. You know, there's so many things that I wouldn't even dreamed of even trying to do in the first one, where you got movable cards, saved divisions on the dashboard, the KPIs. Like, there's just so many things that we're able to build into this one, because I've gotten that much education since and continued to grow. And that's ultimately what you need to be doing as a business owner, is continuing to grow. So, but man, we talked about a ton today, you know. And there's still so much more to hit on. You know, I feel like we could have a conversation every single day, you know what I mean, about different things that are going on in AI and what we're doing, and giving those insights and that impactfulness, and it would never get old because there's always something new, you know.
Oh, it's developing so quick, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just constantly new apps, new programs. And look, at the end of the day, if you're a business owner, pick one thing that you're struggling at within your business that you think a system might help with or an app might help with, and then just start the conversation with one of these platforms about building this app and asking it to help you flesh it out and build out the plan for it. Then once you build the plan, start trying to build it and see what happens, because you might be surprised. I mean, like I said, mine's coming from a pain point. Dave's is coming from a pain point. And these are just things that we saw weren't available in the market that met that had limitations, or those limitations could have been features, pricing, whatever, combination of the two. But once you get to the point where you imagine being able to launch an internal tool for you or your team to use that saved hours every single week to solve problems that you have, and you have to spend a couple $100 on a subscription or some API credits, and a bit of your time to do.
But it's specific for your needs. See, that's the thing that's out there.
Specific to you and what
there's
you're
a lot
doing.
of softwares, there's a lot of things, but every time you talk to somebody, my experience looking at it, it's like there's one or two things that are off, right? This is great, but there's one or two things that are off. That's great. There's 3 things that are off. Now you have the ability to create your own that is exactly what you want, and you're not paying for all the extra fluff. And that's why I say don't try to build out something that's large and huge, especially if you're trying to, you know, go into somewhere, because maybe people don't want all that extra level of, you know, the app. They are looking for something very simple. And if they see your app that's got all these bells and whistles, they're like, oh yeah, I don't even want to do any of that. You know, it's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people stay away from Go High Level, is because there are so many different variations of things that you can do in the platform. It's great. There's tons in there, but they get overwhelmed. And so if you do have different aspects, be able to turn things on and off, right? So that they don't even see it, that they don't even know it's there, you know? So that way they don't feel overwhelmed from the get-go. And I think that's the biggest piece, you know, advice there that I would say too, if you're trying to build out an in-depth thing, is make sure you can turn things on and off. So that way people don't feel overwhelmed and try to feel like they have to learn everything. And it's like, oh, great, this isn't what I want. So
Absolutely. And look, if all of this seems like it's a lot, then maybe you need to start with just getting an understanding of what makes a good app good, what
yeah,
makes a good system good, and start doing some research and educating yourself around that. Then start putting together solutions, because some of the easiest things that I see missed all the time in these sort of app development cycles is things like user permissions, logins, authentication, roles. All these little things come into big play because
right.
people don't think about it. They just assume, yeah, I'm just going to use an app. They don't think about, oh, I need to get, put a fence there and a gate so I can stop people coming in the front door. And let's
Yep.
put some two-factor authentication on it because there's sensitive information in there. Let's make sure that we've got that information locked away from regular users or clients. If there's going to be client information in there, we want to have that visible just to the client that's logging in that's relevant to. So there's all these different things you kind of want to have a basic understanding of, in my opinion, before you start building something. Or if you're not sure of that, just ask the question and say, hey, what things should I be aware of and focused on if I'm building this, and let the
Right.
systems tell you, because it'll educate you, because it knows.
Yeah.
It can take the information, like Dave said, from thousands and thousands and thousands of developers and systems and apps and documents and books and information across the internet and decipher that to your use case, which is kind of
100%.
scary and awesome at the same time.
Yeah. Well, it is for sure. So I would say, wrapping up, man, what's that one thing you hope somebody walks away from today? I mean, we talked about a lot. We got a lot in depth,
Yeah.
high level stuff. We didn't get in depth, I guess, in anything, but that's the goal, is that, we don't have enough time here to get in depth with anything. But what's that one thing that you hope somebody walks away with today?
Look, whether it's trying out a skill or an AI agent or trying to build yourself an app with vibe coding, give it a try. Start with something. And it could just be you're building a custom GPT. Maybe you haven't even got to you beyond that level yet. Build a gem in Google Gem. With any of these sort of processes will get you started. And if you find yourself enjoying it, start investigating more and start down that path. And you might just find yourself smiling at work while you're working on one of these projects. And you may just find yourself a little distracted building something, but enjoying yourself doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say for sure, the idea of testing and growing is the biggest thing that I want people to walk away from, is that the version of you today should be looking back at the version of you 6 months ago and be like, yeah, I would have never thought I'd be doing this, or I never thought I would have achieved what I have, or that I've learned what I've learned. That should be a minimum goal for you, like every 6 months, to be able to look back and say, oh wow, I've done a lot, I've achieved a lot, I've learned a lot. And that's what I would say the biggest thing from this episode that I hope you walk away with, is that you should not be trying to just maintain. A lot of people get into that, and I get it. Like, you build your process in your system to try to maintain so that other people can do the maintaining for you. That's the ultimate goal. You want to continue to grow. And that's the biggest success piece in business, is if you're in business to just try to maintain, you're always going to fall behind, especially the pace at which the business world is moving today. So you have to be willing to evolve and then figure out, okay, what's my process behind that? And then that's going to help you maintain the level while you're still growing and being that visionary for your business that you need to be. So if you got something out of this episode, I hope that you feel that it was worth to give it a like. Please share this video too, if you're interested, and you know there's people in your network that could benefit from some of this information. We're trying, as we say every episode, Triumph Business Solutions has a goal of impacting 1,000 business owners by the end of 2028. And this is one piece of that. So with that, appreciate you being here. If you're watching the replay, always feel free that you can ask questions. Drop them down below, shoot us an email, drop a comment, however you can engage. We will make sure either we're going to answer it live in maybe one of our other episodes, or we'll get you an answer to that question, in any medium. We want to make sure that we give you that support, that insight that you need. And with that, make sure you're following, make sure you're hitting that notification bell. We got a lot of cool things coming out, from Triumph Business Solutions. I know Duarne's gonna have a lot of cool things coming out, from his organizations as well. So follow, and be there along the journey. And if you got cool wins too, like share them with us. We want to celebrate your wins too. So if there's anything interesting that's going on in your world, feel free to share them, and we can, kind of highlight some of those in future episodes as well. So with that, we love you all for being here. We love you all for the engagement, the following. Keep going, keep pushing. As I always say, it's temporary. It's funny. I was on a podcast on LinkedIn the other day, and the guy, had asked me, he's like, what's one final thing that you would say to people? And I've said this for a while in the past, in like my old like vlogging days, where I think I vlogged for like 30 days or something like that. But I always try to end the episodes with, it's temporary. No matter what you're going through, it's temporary. If you're in a lull, or you're in a valley, it's going to end, as long as you're willing to put the effort in, and you'll reach that next peak. And so keep pushing forward, keep making each day the best day that you can, and you'll break through. So anything you're facing right now, it's only temporary. So but with that, Duarne, thanks for joining me for another episode. For those of you that are here, we love you. We hope you have a wonderful and amazing rest of your week, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.